Hey, what's up guys? Darkbreaker here. I'm rank 1 in Legend. Hi guys. Okay, wait. Let me copy the royal introduction. Hey, my name is Darkbreaker and I'm rank 1 in Legend. I've been rank 1 and Challenger multiple times in the last few seasons. I was higher ranked than Royal himself, so better listen to my tier list. But yeah, enough with the memes. You guys know me by now, hopefully, and if you guys are new to the channel, I make a lot of content, daily content, and I'm starting to do more voiceovers in the future. So I think most of my videos from now on are gonna be voiceovers where I'm gonna explain to you guys my decision making and give you guys some tips about champions. My main positions are jungle and Baron lane, but I think I can play pretty much every role. If you guys have been following me, I can play almost every champion, besides a few champions like maybe a scuffed Lee Sin, maybe a scuffed Aurelion Sol, because I don't play them too much. But I think overall I can play most champions, so feel free to follow. Make sure to leave a like and subscribe if you guys are enjoying this. We have the new champions Ornn and Volibear. So this is a nice excuse to make another tier list because the next sub patch is gonna be a while. So we're gonna update the tier list, and if you guys want to hear my opinion about the champions, how good they are, where they are ranked in my opinion, I mean obviously this is just an orientation for you guys. Orientation means you can just see, oh, that's his opinion. Okay, maybe I will try out these champions if he thinks these champions are broken, but yeah, up to preference obviously. And I added a little section at the end of the video where we're gonna talk about my personal must bans this patch, or this I mean in this ranked season right now. These are my personal must bans right now. Maybe we should put them in order, like Baron, mid lane, jungle, etc. But we will talk about this later on. I hope you guys will enjoy it. We're gonna start with the Baron lane right now. So for Baron lane, we have the two new champions, Ornn and Volibear, that can be played both in the jungle as well as in the Baron lane. But I would say Volibear is better in the jungle and Ornn is way better in the Baron lane. So how will this be structured? I'm going to talk through every champion, talking about their strengths and weaknesses really quickly and why I think they deserve or should be in that position. But yeah, it's just my personal opinion. Ornn, I know Random, the rank 1 player, is a big fan of this champion. He's a big fan of him. Even though I kind of feel like he is a champion. I mean, he's the tank, obviously, and you guys know my opinion about tanks. Tanks are not necessarily the greatest hyper carries in a solo queue environment, and in solo queue you often rely on your allies, especially on the bot lane, and I would say most of the games are decided by the better ADC. So if you guys are the better ADC, trust me, the likelihood of you winning the game is really high in this meta right now. If you guys know Chronix, for example, he has like an 80% win rate to Challenger playing ADC, and I think he kind of proved that ADCs are broken as fuck right now, and the meta is pretty much ADC orientated, or ADC heavy. That means the better ADC will almost, I mean the better ADC wins 80% of the games pretty much. Like even if you are like a really good jungler or Baron lane, Baron diff is not that good. I would not, if you guys wanna, I can give you like an example about my personal rating about solo queue right now. What's the best positions? The thing is, ADC solo queue is kind of scuffed. ADC duo queue, that's the broken shit. But to be fair, Chronix is also swapping solo queue. So I would say ADC, jungle, and then mid or support. I think lower ranks mid lane and then higher rank support. And then Baron lane is bottom. Baron lane is 100% bottom, and we can argue between jungle and ADC what's better, and we can argue between support and mid lane what's better. But yeah, that's my personal preference, or what I think right now what's happening. Yeah, I think ADC is just the strongest. Like the amount of times where I'm seeing I can dominate in the jungle and the ADC is just so much stronger. So ADC jungle mid support. Across all ranks. And if we talk about high elo, then support over mid lane. But yeah, okay, let's get started. I just swifted away a little bit. So what makes Ornn so strong? This guy has percentage damage. He has tons of crowd control. I would say he is Malphite on steroids. I think that's a good example because he has so many knockups. He has like the knockback on that brittle auto attack. He has the third ability for knockup. He has his ultimate for knockup, and his first ability is the slow as well. He becomes super tanky as well. The longer the game goes, the more items he's getting, the more resistance he's gonna become. So he's like one of the best frontliners in the game right now with insane crowd control and really good in the 1v1. I think if you guys, I think since this is a new champion, let's talk about the counters for this champion or when you should not pick him. I would say true damage champions are very hard for Ornn to deal against. So Fiora, Gwen, potentially Darius are hard matchups for him. What else? Camille, potentially with Divine Sandra and the first ability, and Jack's late game. I think Jack's late game might also be a problem, but to be fair, if you're rushing like Frozen Heart, etc., maybe it's gonna be hard for him to kill. No, never mind. I'm not gonna put Jax. But yeah, for sure Fiora. Fiora is probably the hardest matchup. So if you guys want to counter Ornn, go for the Fiora. And then otherwise Gwen, obviously with a percentage true damage, really good. And Darius also has true damage, but I think Darius is a little bit easier to kite because you can just try to dash out. But it's gonna be hard to hold him later on. But I think he can do fine. I think he can do fine in this matchup. Okay, let's move on to Aatrox. Aatrox has been one of the strongest champions in the Baron lane for a long time because he has 3 knockups, right? 3 knockups. He has really good sustain and he does a lot of damage. So he's a great frontliner with tons of sustain and really good damage and great duelist as well. He's just an insane frontliner in team fights. That's the main reason. Now Akali, by the way, this is not in an order, by the way, because some people might be confused and think, okay, Ornn is the best champion in the Baron lane. No, that's not the case. I just wanted to highlight him and talk about him first. But yeah, they are not in an order. So Akali is one of the best assassins in the game, both in the mid lane as well as in the Baron lane. She just is a high skill ceiling champion, so if you're really good on this champion, you will excel on her even more. Insane burst damage, insane teamfight potential, like really good 1v9 carry potential. Next one is gonna be Camille. Camille is a great duelist and also good in teamfights thanks to her ultimate to catch people. I think in this meta her ultimate is super useful to catch assassins or catch ADCs, and obviously her split pushing with Hullbreaker is super good. She has the mobility thanks to her hookshot, so that's really nice as well. And her dual power is, I think she doesn't really have like insanely hard losing matchups. I think Jax and Fiora are kind of hard, but overall Camille can do fine against almost any champion. Like a super safe champion, especially if you guys are running her with fleet footwork. Now Gwen is one of the strongest anti-tank killers. So if you guys wanna pick a champion that can counter those tanky champions like a Shen, Ornn, Garen, Malphite, Sion, Urgot, etc. Gwen is the go-to pick. She is one of the strongest late game hyper carries as well. She has true damage, she does magic damage as well. If you guys want to have some AP damage in the Baron lane, she's a good option. Next one is gonna be Garen. This guy is just super tanky, very beginner friendly, and does tons of damage. He has a silence, he has damage reduction on his second ability, his third ability does a lot of damage even though you're building him tanky. If you play against split pushers, just get the Hullbreaker, and if you don't play against split pushers, just go Black Cleaver, Sterox Gauge, Twin Guard, etc. You just become super tanky and you do a lot of damage. And the silence is really good in teamfights. If you use it on a key target, they can't use flash anymore, they can't use their abilities to escape anymore. So, or you can use it to cancel like channeling abilities, like a Nunu ultimate. You just use the Garen silence and you can cancel it. So super good actually. Now next one is me, Gragas. Gragas, one of the most consistent and flexible Baron laners because you can play him tank, hybrid, full AP, super versatile. With the Aftershock or Grasp, you can build him tanky, or with the Electrocute, Or you could also use Phase Rush, to be honest. Electrocute for the full burst AP build. Overall super solid in team, like really good in team fights. If you play him as a poking AP mage, he has insane playmaking potential and one-shot potential, good poking in team fights. And if you use him as a tank, he has damage reduction on the second ability. He has a third ability that can stun, and the ultimate for catch or playmaking potential. I just realized I need to move my camera. Ooh, darkbreaker, what are you doing? Anyways, let's move on to Jax. Jax is probably the strongest split pusher in my opinion. He's an insane duelist. He's one of the strongest late game scaling champions. He has the third, like what makes him so strong is the third ability. He can block auto attacks. With the passive, he can get a lot of attack speed to siege turrets. And he has the auto attack reset on the second ability, making it even easier to secure turret. And 1v1 in the late game, he is, like I said, one of the strongest duelists / split pushers. And he becomes also very tanky. The more attack damage you have, the more armor you're gonna get from the ultimate, and the more AP you have. Okay, you're not building him AP, but you get the point. You're getting a lot of armor from the ultimate. Now, next one, Wukong. What makes him strong? He is strong because he has a lot of sustain, thanks to the first ability and Divine Thunder, for example. Then he has the AoE knock-up ultimate. I mean, that's pretty much it. Insane ultimate. That's the reasoning. Now, Volibear, the new champion. Why do I put him S tier? I think he has really strong sustain, insane base stats. If you guys run him Divine Sandra plus Black Cleaver and maybe Riftmaker, I mean, it depends on the matchup. I think Sandra, Rumble Vest, and then maybe Black Cleaver or Riftmaker makes him a really good duelist. And he is pretty good in teamfights as well because he's such an amazing frontliner, and his ultimate is very useful for turret diving. First ability, guaranteed stun, also super useful. I think he does fine against most matchups, minus 2 damage champions. So Fiora counters him, Gwen counters him, Camille probably also counters him later on, not necessarily early on. Jax, I played against the Jax, and I have to say this was a very hard matchup to play, because he can just block. He can block your stun with this third ability, so it's very hard to trade against him. Because then, if he doesn't get stunned, he just out-trades you. Even when you're stacking armor, it's a very hard matchup. But I think overall, I think he does super fun because he has so much sustain. The second ability, the lower you are, the more you are gonna get healed from the second ability. And the longer you're in a team fight, the more damage you will do, because since they're marked, you will obviously always do the marked second ability damage onto them. Trading wise, I think, when do you want to play him against melee champions, best case? Let's see. Maybe against Garen. I think against Wukong is also okay. Malphite, Mundo. Darius kind of tricky because of the true damage. Maybe not. Riven, I think Riven should also be fine. Set. Aatrox could be fine as well with the sustain you have. Yeah, I think he's a pretty solid choice overall. Now next one, Shen. Shen is a decent or pretty good team fighting champion with his ultimate to join, with the global ultimate to join team fights. He has a taunt as well in the team fight. Overall, he's a decent duelist, but he obviously gets outscaled by a lot of champions. Next one is gonna be Riven. Riven is a champion, high mobile and really good damage at the same time. I think that's about it. High mobility champion with tons of damage. I would say she has a lot of hard matchups though, but it's a skill-based champion. Now Swain, honestly, I think Random told me this as well, that Swain is better in the Baron lane than in the mid lane. I guess because this champion has really good poking damage, has good sustain, becomes tanky, and can just farm pretty safely most of the times with the first ability and the... Wait, first and second ability. Darius got buffed for the lane, by the way, because they increased his passive damage. His passive damage is actually really good right now. I think the main problem is still that he gets kited by a lot of team compositions, but this applies for a lot of bruisers. If they don't have any mobility or gap closing abilities, they get kited by crowd control and high mobility champions. Vayne, Lucian, Ezreal, he just gets kited. Morgana, Luxbind, stuff like that is like I think Morgana is like one of the strongest counters like to Darius. Like let's say you play against Nautilus plus Morgana, and maybe they have a Varus as well. You can never reach them. Or they have like a Lucian or Vayne, you can never reach them. This is the reason why I also put Set into S tier and not S+. Let's move on to Dr. Mundo. Dr. Mundo is pretty tanky. He does decent amount of damage, surprisingly, and his 1vs1 is also pretty strong. Overall, solid tank, good damage. Let's move on to Renekton. Renekton has the whole package. He's a great duelist. He's good in teamfights thanks to his ultimate, which is making him more tanky. He has a stun lock, so you can just aim onto someone and stun them. It has really good burst damage at the same time. Has good mobility, but he kind of falls off in the late game. So his hype, like his carry potential, isn't as potent as some other Baron laners. Now next one, Fiora. Fiora is one of the strongest lane bullies in the game. Good at split pushing, but I think her team fighting is kind of hard to play out, and she requires a lot of skill to make her work. Next one is Jace. Jace is also one of the strongest lane bullies. He has the range advantage to freeze and zone opponents off. He has really good split pushing if you guys are using Hullbreak on him, and he also has really good poking damage in team fights. If you guys are gonna go for a more poking build with Mana Immune, with Sterilda, Yumus, or maybe Black Cleaver. Next one is gonna be Malphite. Malphite is a very strong tanky champion. He counters physical damage champions because he can just stack up armor, and his second ability also grants him armor, and his third ability reduces attack speed. Plus he has the ultimate that can knock up multiple people in team fight, so he's a huge team based or team fight based champion. The problem is his tier split push or holding his lane is gonna be very hard against split pushers, especially if they have true damage. So Fiora can be hard to deal with later on. Gwen, true damage plus magic damage, very hard to deal. Jax, if you guys are leaving or if you guys go for the dragon and Jax is unattended, he's just gonna take every damn turret, so be careful if you play Malphite against split pushers in this case. Next one is gonna be Cannon. Cannon is also a teamfight based champion and also extreme lane bully. His early game is extremely strong. He can zone people away similar to Jace because he has the range factor. His teamfight with the ultimate is insane as well, but obviously be mindful because this champion is squishy and he might get outscaled by a lot of champions, and it's gonna be hard for him to hold the lane. Next one is me, Set. Set is a strong teamfight based champion. He's also a decent duelist. He has the third ability to stun people and pull them together. He has the ultimate to grab someone and just smash them down where they're getting knocked up. I think it's a knock up or a stun. I think knock up. And then he has the true damage from the second ability. He's getting a huge shield. The more damage he's taking, the more grit he's collecting in the team fight, the more damage he will do, and it is true damage. So Set is an insane teamfight playmaker. Problem like Darius about bruisers and crowd control and high mobility compositions. Now next one is me, Yone. This champion is one of the strongest late game scaling champions. He has insane playmaking potential, high mobility, high burst damage. Early game he is okay, but he really needs items. He needs like 3 items. That's when he's starting to scale and become really strong. So his early game is not the greatest, but if you guys are just playing safely and you played well, you can definitely just farm up and become super strong. Now next one, Urgot on the other hand is very strong in the early game, kind of falls off in the early mid game, and then, or actually, I think he falls off a little bit, becomes strong again, and then he falls off again. I think his pre-level 3 is the strongest, and then when he's like level 8, that's when he's strong, really strong as well, and then he's falling off again. But yeah, this champion, in the early game, he's a strong lane bully, pre-level 3. Then at level 5, I think he's losing against a lot of champions. And then when your more passive is maxed out or lowest cooldown, that's when he becomes really strong as well. Because you will do a lot of damage, you're really tanky as well, you have good playmaking in teamfights with the third ability to grab people, or with the ultimate to push someone and AoE fear the opponents. But overall, he's just a meat shield, so obviously, as a meat shield, you're kind of reliant on your allies. But this explanation about being reliant on your allies applies for every tank, by the way. Same for Sion, by the way. Sion is a strong teamfight based champion, but can also be played as a strong split pusher. I think a lot of people usually tend to just play him as a split pusher, but I would recommend you guys to play a mixed playstyle where you're going for turrets and also joining teamfights with the ultimate. Especially if you're using the ultimate from the Baron lane through the river and hit some people in the Dragon team fight. That's like the optimum case of using the ultimate effectively, or using the ultimate to create pressure, pushing in the side lane. The champion is really tanky, has good crowd control, but he doesn't do as much damage obviously. He's just main front line and split push monster. Can be split push monster. I wouldn't recommend playing Lethality. His passive is not that good anymore, or it's not as good as or PC. Like if you guys are watching Baus, Wildrift's Sion passive is shit, and also PC, a Sion passive got nerfed a long time ago, so it isn't as potent to run Lethality. You can always just split push with Demolish, Hullbreaker, and a full tank build, by the way. Now let's move on to Akshan. Akshan is a champion that is a strong lane bully. Good against melee champions, vulnerable to ganks, but not as much as Lucian or Vayne, by the way, but they have the same explanation. So you wanna pick him to counter some melee champions. I think Akshan is great into Fiora, for example, great into Darius, great into Set. Yeah, great into a lot of melee champions, because you can just kite them and bully them, get that first hit early, and then try to rotate and snowball, best case. And worst case is you're getting spam ganked and you are useless. And honestly, Akshan, I think Akshan Baron lane is high skill based, because you need to understand how wave management works. You need to track the enemy pathing, enemy jungle pathing, and you also need to be aware of like freezing, zoning, etc. Like maximizing the harassing, and then you can dive them, and then you can get platings and repeat, etc. So this playstyle, you need brain. Honestly, if you want to play ADC top lane, if the enemy jungler wants to, they can just screw you over completely and you can't do anything anymore. So it's a playstyle that is a double-edged sword. Obviously, you can absolutely destroy the lane opponent, but you can absolutely get destroyed as well. So good map awareness and good freezing and good laning is required. So check out my wave management guide. Next one is going to be Diana. Diana is great in teamfights and decent in the lane, but I think she will have a lot of problems against a lot of champions, because you can mainly just farm with the first ability, and trading is gonna be hard. That's why just A tier. Grace in the early game can be good against some elite champions, but overall he's very scaling. You need 3 items, focus on farming, try to trade safe. I think he can be good against Fiora and Darius, stuff like that. Next one is going to be Aurelia. Aurelia is a high skill based or high skill ceiling champion. You need a lot of skill, need a lot of matchup knowledge to make your work in the Baron lane, because there are a lot of hard matchups for her to play out. I think in the right hands you can play her a lot of times or against a lot of champions. Obviously she is, good burst damage, good sustain, good mobility. But yeah, hard to play. I would say pretty hard to play in the Baron lane. Next one is going to be Pantheon. As always, you guys know the explanation by now, hopefully. This is an extremely strong lane bully in the early game. He has good burst damage. His ultimate is amazing to join teamfights as well, and he can rotate with the ultimate. But he falls off in the mid game, and he's super snowball reliant if you guys are playing him in the Baron lane. If you fall behind on Pantheon, you are 95% of the times in Inter, and 95% of the times the Pantheon player in my solo queue games is in Inter. Don't be the Pantheon player that plays an early game champion and still dies first blood. Just doesn't work. just stick to Garen then. If Pantheon is too hard for you, stick to Garen. You can't die and you're still super useful. Just stick to Pantheon then. Pantheon is for Giga Chats. If you want to be a Pantheon main, it's only for Giga Chat. Big balls and good laning phase. Good snowball understanding. Only for Giga Chats. So only for my viewers, right? So you guys tell me, how good is Pantheon? Oh, by the way, you guys can tell me your opinion about Volibear and Ornn, by the way. What's your opinion about these new champions? Where do you rate them? Do you think they're broken, or do you think they are not broken? Or do you think I overrated them? Next one is going to be Teemo. Teemo is Satan himself. He is a lane bully. His ultimate is super annoying late game, but yeah, he's very squishy, he's vulnerable. He is not the strongest in the mid game. I think his early game extremely strong, and his late game, when you're full item, your shrooms are hurting. Like if you have a lot of abilities and you can put or cover the map with shrooms before teamfight, that's when you're shining the most. Jarvan, solid laner, good in teamfights. Yasuo, wait, what happened? Yasuo is a strong champion in the late game. I would say he's similar to Yone, but his early game is much weaker and he has way harder matchups, and he just doesn't play as safe as Yone with the third ability. Yone can play super safe into hard matchups, while Yasuo against bruisers is gonna be a hard matchup. Like Yasuo against Renekton, against Jax, against Garen, against Fiora. These are all really hard matchups for him. And Malphite, for example, counters him. I would say Ornn just shits on him as well. Aatrox, Wukong, I think they're all just winning against him until like full late game. So for Lucian and Vayne, you guys already know the explanations. Very similar to Akshan, but they are just easier to gank in comparison. Okay, let's continue with Olaf. Olaf, I think, is a super situational counter pick. You want to pick him into tanky champions, and you do not want to pick him into high mobility champions that are gonna kite you. Super snowball reliant, so he's either hit or miss. That's why I'm just putting him B tier, because from my experience, most people don't know how to play Olaf in the Baron lane, so I don't want to promote this champion in the Baron lane. Next one is gonna be Sinch. Sinch is pretty weak in the early game, I would say, but his late game scaling is insane. He's super good in team fights, and he's one of the best scaling champions. Warwick, a super situational cheesy pick. I think his sustain in the laning phase is good, but he's pretty weak in comparison to other laners, and I think he loses a lot of matchups. Nautilus, I think he's over solid, but he just... I feel like Malphite and Ornn are just way better than him. Like they're just way more useful, and they're way stronger in the 1v1 in comparison. So just play Malphite or Ornn or Mundo or even Voli or Sion. I think they're all doing a better job at what Nautilus wants to do. But Nautilus, obviously, hey, you have the ultimate in team fights, so that's okay. But I think in the 1v1 he is pretty damn useless. Tryndamere is pretty weak in the early game. That's why I'm putting him B tier, and he is kind of one-dimensional, that you need to focus on farming a lot, and then in teamfights he isn't really that strong, because he would struggle to reach and catch people in this meta right now. Now let's move on to Kayle. Kayle is a champion that is super weak in the early game. She's very vulnerable, she's easy to dive, she's easy to punish, she's super scaling. Just try to survive. Try to not die as much, try to get into late game somehow, and then maybe you get useful at some point. Nasus, kind of similar. I think Nasus is stronger though. Nasus is harder to dive than a Kayle, because Kayle is super squishy. So Nasus, very slow paced champion that needs to AFK farm to get stacks up, but he can become pretty strong, to be fair, late game. But he has a lot of hard matchups, a lot of matchups where he's getting bullied. Or even a lot of matchups where even if Nasus is scaling, he's still gonna end up losing. Let's say Gwen for example. Gwen is gonna win against Nasus late game because of the true damage. She's just gonna run this guy down even if he's getting Visage. Let's move on to jungle. Dude, I'm taking a lot of time for this tier list, by the way. So, For S+, we have a few changes. So first of all, Aatrox, still one of the best junglers in the game. He is super strong, very popular in China because he has a lot of damage, a lot of sustain, etc. Riven, high mobility and tons of burst damage. Why is she so good in the jungle? I mean, I already said it. She can rotate on the map super quickly and she just does so much damage. It's very similar for Kayn, by the way. If you guys, for guys who are not aware, Blue Kayn is insanely strong right now, especially against squishy targets. So if you guys are playing against ranged champions, squishy champions, Blue Kayn. If you guys are playing against tanky champions, melee champions, Red Kayn. And Blue Kayn just does insane amount of burst damage. His second ability can nuke you 50% automatically, and with the Shimmering Spark, I think that's the name of the item, you can get blue form in 2 minutes, best case, and usually it's like 4 minutes for blue form. Now, Volibear, this champion has become one of the most popular junglers in the game right now. He has a really good jungle clear speed, he's super tanky, his diving is insane, his ganks are really good, he does a lot of damage and he is super tanky at the same time. Yeah, in the early skirmishes he's surprisingly very strong with the second ability. The second ability, the longer the fight goes, I mean, once you have some more mark, you will continuously do a lot of damage thanks to the mark. When do you not want to play Voli against high mobility champions and high crowd control? You don't want to get kited. So champions that can interrupt his first ability. So a bind, for example, Morgana binds, Nautilus can stun him, for example, Varus ultimate, Lux bind, and then if you play against a Vayne, Lucian, etc., that's when Volibear can't really play. Now next one is gonna be Diana! Diana, one of my most favorite assassins in the game. High mobility, burst damage, insane in teamfights. Evelynn is in solo queue, one of the strongest junglers thanks to her stealth and thanks to her assassination potential. She just snowballs on the map super well. Gragas is one of the strongest AP junglers in the game. He has insane poking damage and insane playmaking potential, and is strong at every stage of the game. Especially in the late game, his one-shot potential is crazy. Let's move on to Lee Sin. Lee Sin is one of the strongest junglers in the game. He is a super dominant early game jungler with high fast / tempo, so he's just gonna spam gang left and right. He can invade super easily and he just one-shots you when he's snowballing with the Yuumu's Trinity. One misstep, boom, one-shotted, and he has so many gank angles thanks to his second ability, just coming from behind, kicking you, and yeah, just extremely strong early and mid game. Now wait, I didn't put Jax on purpose there, by the way. I forgot to move them. I probably was moving champions up and up, and then I forgot to move Jax down. My bad! Don't blame me, Jax is not S tier, Jax is B tier. Now let's move on to Yone. Yone is one of the strongest late game bullies. Okay, where was I? Yone, one of the strongest late game bullies. He is just insanely strong once he gets 3 items, has so much playmaking potential, and he does tons of damage. Wukong, I already explained, really good in team fights, good ganking potential, and tons of sustain. Kha'Zix, very similar reason to Lee Sin. This guy just one-shots you. This guy just ganks left and right, he just one-shots you and is really good at securing objectives. Shyvana. I think I'm the only one who's rating Shyvana on this side because if you guys are not aware, Shyvana is my main champion, or used to be my main champion in season 1 and in other seasons, using her to get a challenger solo queue. And fun fact, I was a Shyvana main on PC. I got challenger using Shyvana in the jungle as well on PC. But it's a long time ago, season 3 or something, a long time ago. I'm a boomer. So why do I think she's so good in solo queue? You're just gonna focus on farming, and at some point you just become so strong that you're just running everyone down. Like 400 stack Shyvana, 3 items, you're just running people down completely. You become super tanky and you do tons of damage. But obviously, she doesn't have the fast tempo like Lee Sin, like Nevelyn or Kha'Zix, spam ganking left and right. So focus on farming and try to counter gank when possible. Amumu, one of the strongest teamfight champions thanks to his ultimate. That makes him really good for those clown fiestas at Dragon or Baron. In the early game he's kind of weak though, to be fair. Next one is gonna be Rammus. Rammus, I think if you pick Rammus into a full attack damage composition, he's S+ tier. I had like an 8 win streak on this champion. He's super strong and an insane counter against physical damage. He can spam gank, he's super tanky as well, and he's very useful in team fights and a good frontliner as well, or / good meat shield. Echo is an insane assassin. The only problem is that his early jungle clear speed is very slow, but his one-shot potential once you have 3 items is super good, and the more items, the easier you can one-shot people, and you have the ultimate for the safety net to just teleport back, heal yourself up and do tons of damage. Lilia is very similar in the case that her early game is... I'm gonna move Gwen right next to her, honestly, because they have the same explanation. Oops. Lilia, early game, pretty slow pace, very slow in the jungle, but once she has 3 items, she becomes super strong in team fights, and she is very good against melee / tanky champions, because she is a champion that is close ranged, she has the AoE sleep, and she has a lot of percentage damage when you are using Liandry on her, so that's what makes her very good against melee champions. And she has tons of sustain from that first ability. So Riftmaker, first ability against tanky champions, super good. That's when you want to play her. When you want to play Gwen, Gwen is one of the best anti-tank counters, I already said it. In the early game she's also slow paced, slow jungle clear speed, and she needs her core items, like 3 items that when she's starting to become really strong, has the true damage, has that AP burst damage. So pick her into... not mobile champions, because you will get kited. Pick your best case into melee champions / tanky champions. Dr. Mundo, overall a pretty good frontliner. Good jungle clear speed, good damage, and tanky as well. But yeah, as a tank, you guys already know it, reliant on bot lane to be humans. Next one is gonna be Fizz. Honestly, I should put them in the category. Like, this is the scaling late game category. Echo, Lilia, Gwen, and Fizz. They're all scaling late game. Same for Grace, by the way. So in the early game, Fizz is definitely super slow pace. You need 2 items at least, and that's when he's starting to become very strong. He's a great assassin against squishy targets. He has the ultimate to catch people off guard, so that's really nice. Now, Grace, you just want to focus on farming, get 3 items, and then you are super strong in teamfights, have that insane crit damage, and tons of sustain thanks to Bloodthirster plus Immortal Shippo. Aurelia, overall great assassin, good damage, good mobility, decent playmaking, and good snowboarding as well. Jarvan has been one of my favorite picks using that crit Jarvan build where I'm running in lethality, just one-shotting people with the ambush playstyle, just catching people off guard. But you can obviously just also play him as a bruiser, where he is an insane frontliner with great playmaking potential and very strong early game jungle pressure, just ganking left and right thanks to his level 2 already being able to use the flag combo. Jay is also extremely strong in the early game, great in skirmishes and great at snowboarding the game, and then he still has the poking damage, but he falls off in the late game. Morgana, yeah, this is a champion where you want to focus on farming. She has really good poking damage and great utility in team fights, and obviously you want to play the team fight slowly and just keep poking people down slowly and slowly. So that's the playstyle. You wanna use her if you guys wanna kite and counter melee champions, because with the slow, with the poke, with the first ability to bind and zone people away, she's really good to counter champions like Darius, for example. Next one is with Nautilus. Nautilus is a CC machine, especially if you're using AP. He has tons of damage, or AP hybrid, or just full tank. Either he will do a lot of damage, or he is a great frontline with tons of crowd control. Next one is going to be Twitch. Twitch is one of the strongest late game scaling champions. 3 items, and you're just starting to nuke people away with your poison from far away. But obviously his early game is extremely bad, so try to not fight anything and just try to farm up. Same for Tristana. Tristana's a late game monster. I think a jungle is way better than Twitch, but obviously you don't want to play too aggressive and just focus on farming, get the core items, and then you're just carrying games yourself, because you are your own ADC. You're not relying on your own bot lane ADC anymore. And why do I put them S tier? Because they're just strong. They're just strong late game hyper carries. And in solo queue, most games, no one is gonna invade and punish you. No one is invading you. In high elo, no one invades you. You just get full clear, you go reset, you get items, you gank somewhere, you get a kill, and farm, repeat, and then you just 3 items, you're just killing people and running everyone down. Nunu, why do I think Nunu is good? He has good frontline, good crowd control, and insane ganking snowball potential with his snowball. Haha. Next one is gonna be Sincha. Sincha is a great bruiser with good damage and good tankiness and good sustain. Bye. Good ganker as well, good frontliner, good bruiser, good damage. Next one is gonna be Kale. Kale, surprisingly, the secret OP pick, in my opinion. Secret OP pick in a solo queue. I'm on a 10 win streak on this champion, surprisingly. Whenever I see someone who I know, this guy's an Inter, he's gonna run me down, I know this guy is a bad player, he always plays bad, I always pick Kale, and somehow I still carry the game. Because you just focus on farming on this champion, you farm, and then you just smash. That's Kale for you guys. Just focus on farming safely. Most of the times people will not invade you. Try to counter gang if possible. Farm, get items, and then you just run people down. Yasuo is a champion. In the early game, he is pretty damn weak and he's comp reliant, but in the late game with 3 items, he becomes super strong, he does tons of damage. Akshan is a cheesy jungler, but his roaming and ganking potential is pretty good, but obviously he's in the range ADC, so he can be punished. Shen is a tank that has good playmaking potential with a taunt to gank, using the ultimate to counter gank as well. But hey, you are a tank, so you rely on your teammates. If we were talking about comp, I would rate him higher. Let's move on to Camille. Camille, in the early game, she is really weak, honestly. Her jungle clear is pretty slow, but her ultimate makes up for it in team fights, and she has high mobility as well. Or her ultimate also makes up in ganks, by the way. If you land a good ultimate while you're ganking, it's almost a guaranteed kill. Darius jungle clear speed got nerfed thanks to the passive nerf, but I think he can be a fun champion to play against melee champions, where you're not getting kited, and he does a lot of damage. He has true damage as well, and a reset mechanic. Fiora is strong in the early skirmishes, has true damage as well, but she's pretty hard to play in teamfights. That's the main problem. Olaf, Olaf is S tier. I made a mistake. I think I just forgot to move him correctly. I used to have him in S+ tier, and the main reason I put him in S tier is because he is very comp reliant. I know I said Kayn is also comp reliant, but to be fair, blue Kayn works like in so many games, and if you don't want to play blue Kayn, you just can run red Kayn, to be fair. But yeah, blue Kayn is the counter to range champions and high mobility champions. That's why he's S+ tier now, in my opinion. I wasn't sure if I put him S+ tier last tier list, but honestly, blue Kayn is just too strong. And Olaf, I think against melee champions and into the right team comp, he's S+ tier. Oh, I forgot to mention, by the way, if you're listening by now, later on, right? In the Enchanter section, there are a lot of champions that I would rate differently depending on the team comp you're playing them in. There's like the average rating, and there's like, if you play them into the right team comp, could be even higher. Do you feel me? So for example, Olaf. If you play Olaf against Lucian Z or Lucian Zoe. Lucian Zoe, and what kites you pretty hard? Nami or Janna can kite you pretty hard, because the ultimate doesn't last that long anymore. So if you can't continue to keep up the ultimate, it will run out and you just can't reach them ever. That's the problem. But obviously against melee champions, 2 damage, he just runs everyone down. 1 vs 9, too much sustain. Where was I? Pantheon! Pantheon! I already said that it's a good snowball reliant champion. In the early game especially, really strong, but later on he just falls off. Next one is gonna be Master Yi. Master Yi, I would say he's kind of hit and miss. Can be strong in some cases where you're snowballing, but if you're not snowballing, he's kind of minion, to be fair. And the same applies for Rengar, where I'm thinking, yeah, if you're snowballing, this champion is a great assassin that can just one-shot people left and right, but if you're not snowballing, you're just a minion that can't do anything. So that's the problem about that. Next one is gonna be Urgot. I think Urgot is a champion that has a good jungle clear speed, has good gank potential, but it kind of falls off later on. And there are a lot of champions where playing Urgot is very hard to play into, because he's close ranged and he's getting kited as well. Like, if you can't even hit the third ability, you have a problem, right? Next one is gonna be Zed. I think Zed is a solid assassin, but he's very snowball reliant as well, where you want to pick people off in the early game with your ultimate and get like a few kills, but if you don't, I think he is really not that strong. Next one is gonna be Ornn. I think the problem about Ornn is his jungle clear speed. Like, if his jungle clear speed was better, I would rate him higher, but his jungle clear speed is abysmal. It's really bad. It's really bad, guys. That's what I meant to say. You can play him for fun, but I would recommend playing him Parallel lane, honestly. Next one is gonna be Singed. I think Singed jungle clear speed is okay. His ganks are pretty good though, but he is still pretty weak in the early game against other junglers or in skirmishes. But if he gets like a few sneaky kills here and there and he snowballs, he can be good, and he's good teamfight and can be strong later on. Next one is gonna be Tryndamere. I'm gonna summarize Tryndamere and Jax together, honestly. Tryndamere and Jax are insanely slow paced in the early game, but in the late game they can become pretty strong. Warwick, I think Warwick is just shit in teamfights. That's the main reason I don't like him. His ganks are obviously pretty good, but I think his team fighting is dog shit and he gets kited super hard. Brand, into the right team comp, I think Brand can be a cheesy jungler, good poking damage, but obviously lack of mobility. Let's move on with mid lane. For mid lane we have Ahri. Ahri is one of the strongest assassins in the game. Also for the mid lane, she has really good playmaking potential with the charm, rotating left and right, catching people, and has a lot of mobility. Akali, I already explained it by now. Just insane assassin, good in team fights. Akshan, in the early game, he's one of the strongest lane bullies, so you're just always gonna try to force the first blood, try to play aggressive, pushing in the wave, and then you're just roaming left and right, trying to snowball even more, and he still skates really well into the late game. Karma is a strong poking mage, good utility, insane ultimate. Zoe, one of the strongest poking champions in the game, just nuking you from million miles away. Swain, honestly, this champion is just, he has tons of crowd control, he's really tanky, and he does good damage. I think he's just a super solid champion right now. Diana, one of the strongest teamfight assassins in the game. Kassadin, in the late game, he's a monster. He has a lot of mobility, he has a lot of burst damage, he has silence as well. Katarina in solo queue, I think she is just super good, especially in lower ranks, where you're just getting one reset and you're just wiping everyone off. But yeah, one team fight and you can just turn the game with one reset. I mean, that's why Katarina is just considered. That's why Katarina is so strong in lower ranks. It's because every fight is a clown fiesta, and she excels in clown fiestas. Yone, I already explained it by now, insanely good in the late game. Good playmaking potential, tons of damage. Vex, safe poking champion with good engage and playmaking. He has the AoE fear, or she has the AoE fear, and good reset mechanic as well. Pyke, hyper roaming champion with tons of playmaking potential, and the ultimate to just reset and kill people left and right. Let's move on with Corki. Corki, good poking damage, good in team fight. Fizz, kind of weak in the early game, but I will explain that once he has 3 items, he can become super strong. And obviously in the 1vs1, with the ultimate, if you land it, you kill almost every time someone with the ultimate, unless they're buying stasis. Wait, I wanted to move Riven, oops, like this. Ziggs and Orianna are really strong poking mages. Really good in teamfights as well. Same for Gragas, a super solid poking mage with great playmaking. Then we have Garen, a strong laner against melee champions especially, tanky as fuck. And Silence, very good, plus ultimate, true damage. Aurelia, great assassin, great snowballing. Jace, one of the strongest lane bullies, good poking damage as well. Lucian, high mobility burst damage. Zed is great at split pushing, is great in the 1vs1 as well, and it's just a good assassin in the 1vs1, plus in teamfights to catch the backline. Twisted Fate has a really good roaming potential thanks to the ultimate to control the map, and good catch potential with the gold card and with rapid fire proto belt. You're just catching people from miles away, and it's just so good when you can just trap in brushes, catch people, like you're just picking people one by one, and then you're just forcing the objective with man advantage. So that's the advantage of Twisted Fate. Veigar, honestly, the Veigar players I'm having in my games, I hate them. They're so bad, they're so useless, because they can't roam, they are doing nothing, and they're just absolutely useless. But Veigar is not bad. Veigar is definitely a strong champion. Some people will say, why are you not putting Messi? Honestly, I don't want people to play Veigar because players are just too bad to use him, and they don't pick him into the right team comp. I think Veigar shines the most when you have like some frontliners that are peeling for you, and where you're just using, where you're fighting front to back, and you have the cage to zone people or the cage to catch people. But if you can't roam in the early game and you don't have frontline, then Veigar is dog shit. The amount of times I have like an Ahri versus Veigar, Ahri is just winning a lane and then she's just ganking left and right, and Veigar is just sitting AFK on his turret doing nothing, is so often, and then they're completely useless even 25 minutes into the game. So is it Veigar or is it the player, guys? Tell me in the comments. Is it Veigar or is it the player? Next one is gonna be Annie. Annie is great in teamfights, bad Roma, and not that strong in the early game as well. I think Cannon is good in teamfights, decent in the laning phase, but he has a lot of hard matchups, to be fair. And I think his wave play is also not that good, because if you want to clear the wave, you have to use the third ability, and the moment you use the third ability, you are pretty vulnerable to a gank. Morgana is weak in the early game, but obviously in teamfights she has good utility and good poking damage. Aurelion Sol can be pretty good in teamfights. He has really good roaming potential as well. Echo, I already said it, is weak in the early game, but he scales pretty good later on. But yeah, in the mid lane he will struggle against a lot of champions in the early game. Okay, misplaced Galio. Galio is S tier. Let's see, did I misplace anything else? No. Because you know, sometimes during the tier list I'm just moving the mid lane champions up, like bop, 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 and then I'm moving them afterwards. So I probably just forgot to move them up. But yeah, Galio is really good, has tons of utility, has good poking damage, has a global ultimate to join teamfight, so that's super useful. And yeah, I added some bruisers into the mid lane, because bruisers are viable in the mid lane, but usually I'm like, no one plays them, or most people are not good enough to use them in the mid lane. But champions like Camille, Riven and Fiora can be pretty good in the mid lane. Camille is super safe in the mid lane, by the way. Like with Fleet Footwork and Second Wind and Ruby Start, you don't get poked out too much that you can't hold the lane. You're just maxing the second ability and you're poking the opponent down, and then you have that ultimate to catch people left and right. I used to play Camille mid lane a lot when I was auto-filled. Riven as well in the mid lane is also strong. High mobility, cheesy burst damage. So if you find the all-in against a squishy target, you just can one-shot them. But obviously, you can play them against some elite champions. So Riven, Camille, Fiora, play them against stuff like Kassadin, maybe a Diana, maybe a Kali, or maybe Yone, or maybe Zed, like close melee champions. Definitely viable. Fiora as well with a true damage and a strong duelist in the early game as well. Lilia, very scaling, weak in the early game, but can be good in team fights. I mean, I think by now I'm repeating some champions because I already covered the main points in the other parts, but I guess I should focus on their strength in the mid lane instead. Brand, good poking damage. He has really good poking damage, but the downside is he has lack of mobility. Gwen, lack, I would say very scaling, weak in the early game, but late game super strong. Lux, good poking damage, lack of mobility, and not the greatest roamer. Pantheon, strong in the early game, but he falls off later on. Teemo, guerrilla tactic. I think he's very cheesy though, but he's definitely not bad, by the way. He's definitely not bad. I've seen so many good Teemo mid lane players that are just shrooming the entire river area and then just poking people left and right with their invisibility. Can be pretty good. It's strong name bully as well against some champions. Kayle in the mid lane much better because she can farm more safely in comparison to the Baron lane. Weak in the early game, strong in the super late game. Super late game. Seraphine is also pretty weak in the early game. Some people might say no, but I will say she's very easy to gank and she can't roam. You just can't go to any brushes, because if there's an assassin there, she's just dead. You cannot roam. You just cannot. Like if the enemy assassin has a pink ward or has a red trinket, or the enemy jungler is in the brush somewhere and you don't have vision, you can never roam anywhere. So you're just stuck in the mid lane if you don't have vision. And then in the early game, there are so many champions that just beat her in the lane. Like or assassins as well in the 1v1 that are just gonna all in and kill her. Ahri, Zed, for example, they're just gonna kill her very easily. Maybe Yone, Vex as well. Zoe outrangers can poke her down. Fizz all in with the ultimate, very hard to deal with. You need to rush stasis, for example, then. But yeah. I would think Lucian, Jace should probably also bully her in the early game completely. And they can just all in on her. She can't do anything. It's just how it is. Okay, let's move on to ADCs. For ADCs, I moved some champions up and down because I wanted to distinguish more between S plus and S. I mean, you guys can tell me in the comments your opinion about which champions you think are the strongest in the ADC position. For now, I have Kai'Sa. Kai'Sa has been consistently super strong. What makes her strong? Let's talk about that. The first ability is a nuke. You're just doing with one first ability 50% damage on a single target. She has stealth, she has shield, she has reposition. She's strong at every stage of the game. Pretty much it. Vayne, what makes her strong? True damage, condemn to stun people. Tons of mobility thanks to the first ability. Ultimate also gives her mobility and invisibility. True damage, did I mention true damage? Too much mobility. Tristana, you guys know it by now. Late game monster with tons of range and good decent mobility as well. She has the jump reset mechanic. Honestly, I wasn't sure if I put Jhin as plus tier. And the main reason is not the champion. It's not the champion, it's the players. It's the players, it's the ADC players. You guys know it by now. Do you guys feel me, by the way, when I say there are too many dogshit ADC players? Do you guys feel me? As an ADC main, do you feel attacked if I'm saying your ADC colleagues, your ADC friends, your other ADC mains, they are shit? Do you feel me if I say that? Or do you say, no, my other ADC mains, the other ADC players, they are good players, mechanically gifted. They know when to buy boots. They know when to position. They know how to position themselves. They know how to not die before minute 1. No, they don't. I swear to God. ADC meta is good ADC players 1 versus 9. Bad ADC players dying before 1 minute, 0-5, no boots, shit. That's my experience about ADCs. There are some ADC players, I'm like, nerf ADCs. The problem is not the ADC position, the problem is not the ADC champion, the problem are the ADC players. ADC players are the problem. Do you feel me? I'll write it down below in the comments if you guys feel me about ADC players. ADC players are the nightmare. Trust me on this one. ADC players. But yeah, Jhin is extremely strong in the early game, and he does tons of damage, especially with the collector build. Good poking damage, good damage overall. Even late game, he does still a lot of damage, surprisingly. I think it gets to the passive, and he has a lot of mobility thanks to the updated passive. Yeah, the problem is 90% of Jhin players are shit, but it's not the champion, it's the players. Unfortunately. Let's move on to Lucian. Lucian is a high mobility burst damage champion that is extremely hard to kill. You guys might be wondering why I have been moving some champions down to S tier. I think Samira is still great, obviously, but she's kind of easy to kill, don't you think? I think she's kind of easy to kill. I think she's kind of too easy to kill and interrupt her ultimate. I mean, if you know how to interrupt her ultimate, it's just easy to counter her. Because she needs to walk closely to use her ultimate. And if you just time her ultimate well, then unlucky, huh? Varus, no mobility, but good poking damage. Good counter against tanky champions if you run him AP. He does a lot of poking damage, he's really good, honestly. Now we have Ezreal. Ezreal is... The problem about this champion is very scaling. He's very scaling, but he can become a really good champion, obviously, that can just poke and kite people down. Next one is going to be Corki. I think Corki in the lane is kind of struggling against some champions. Where was I? Ezreal, good poking champion, but he's kind of too scaling. And he doesn't hyper carry as hard as some other champions. Corki, weak. Not that strong in the early game, but can be very good in teamfights with a package. Misfortune, one good ultimate and you just carry teamfights super hard. And her early game is extremely strong. Jinx is too scaling. Jinx and Zeri are great hyper carries, but they are pretty damn weak in the early game, and they're too scaling in comparison to Tristana, who is way stronger in the early game and scales harder. Like, she has just more range, and she has to jump as well. Jinx doesn't have any mobility. I mean, she gets mobility when she kills someone and gets a reset, right? But otherwise she doesn't. Where was I? Saya, good self-peel, decent crowd control, overall solid ADC. Caitlyn, overall a solid ADC as well. Very long range champion, has the longest range in the game, in the early game. Yeah, overall good damage, good range. What can I say about her? She's just overall a very solid pick. There are no downside, but there's also not like the insane hyper carry potential. Draven, on the other hand, is extremely strong in the early game, but he's very snowball reliant. Let's move on to some APCs. For APCs, we have Orianna, Karma, Lux, and Ziggs. If you guys need some AP damage and you have like an AD mid lane, then like you have a Zed mid lane, Yone mid lane, or Yasuo mid lane, Orianna, Karma, Lux, and Ziggs can be great options to poke people down, and they have really good poking utility in teamfights. Twitch is extremely strong in the late game, but Also very, very weak in the early game. That's a problem. Ashe, on the other hand, I think her damage output is not that great. She provides more utility than damage. So her ultimate is obviously very good for playmaking, but I think A, she lacks mobility, B, she is weak in the early game, and C, her damage output in the late game is not that good. I think when I play against Ashe and she gets fed, I'm like, oh, whatever, I can still kill her pretty easily. Brand Morgana are similar to the other APC champions, but they are kinda weaker in the early game and just less range. Senna is ADC. I think she is very scaling. She is not that strong in the in the early game, and I feel like her late game carry potential isn't that strong. Like whenever I tried Senna ADC, I felt like support Senna is way better to stack up souls. And she doesn't feel as strong like in comparison to like Tristana, who does tons of damage. Akshan, it's okay. I think his early game is kind of cheesy, and he kind of gets outranged by other ADCs in teamfights, so that's a problem. Twist of Fate is also a very cheesy pick, and you want to snowball in the early game, but his ultimate can be pretty good to rotate as an ADC to catch people, I guess. Let's move on to... Wait, what happened to my support part? No! No! Okay. Okay, let's do this quickly. Okay, let's move on with support. For supports, Yuumi has been, is still one of the most broken enchanters. Why is she so broken? She does nothing. She just boosts an ADC up, and that ADC becomes a 1 vs 9 monster. Healing, movement speed, good poke damage, ultimate, AoE stun. Karma, insane utility. She has good poking damage with the first ability. The ultimate is insane in teamfights. The second ability, AoE root. Third ability, AoE shield plus movement speed. If you guys are a good Karma player, you have probably the most damage in the game, by the way. Lulu is an insane enchanter. You buff an ADC up, he just becomes a 1 vs 9. Gives tons of attack speed. Then on top of that, they get big as well with the ultimate. So they become also tanky. And then for Pyke, Pyke is one of the strongest playmakers. I already explained it to you guys in the mid lane part. Strong playmaker, insane mobility, and also good hyper carry potential himself with the ultimate. Now for the S tier, we have a segment. The first segment, we call them the tank Giga Chat, the engaging Giga Chat. In the segment, we have Alistar, Galio, Gragas, Thresh, and Nautilus. And then, oh wait, Rakan as well. Did I miss something? Yes. And in the other section, we have the Enchanter ladies, Nami and Jenna. Okay, let's get started. So for Alistar, why is he good? AoE knockup, so you can hit multiple people at the same time, knock them up on a low cooldown. So he has very good playmaking and engage potential. His ultimate, damage reduction. Boom, good Roma. Galio, what makes him strong? Great magic damage counter, because he has damage reduction, magic damage reduction on the second ability. AoE taunt, good poking damage. Knockup, ultimate, global ultimate to join teamfights, giving them a shield as well. Gragas, damage reduction on the second ability, first ability poking damage, third ability knockup. Actually, his knockup was stun. I think it's a knockup. Third ability knockup, ultimate catch potential. I said stun. Dude, am I stupid? I don't even know if my Gragas, third ability is a stun or a knockup. I guess stun. Third ability stun. No, it's a knockup. It's a knockup. That's why Yasuo can use it. It's a knockup. It's like a stun knockup. Let's move on. Thresh. Hook. Shield. Hook for playmaking potential. Shield for to save people. Then he has the fling to catch people, like pulling them towards you or pulling them away. Then he has the ultimate to zone people away, and if they enter, they take damage and they get slowed down. Nautilus. Passive, rooting people on no cooldown. First ability to hook people to catch them. Second ability grants them a huge shield. Third ability slows them. Ultimate, lock target, knock up onto anyone, and on the way everyone is getting knocked up as well. Rakan, AoE taunt, AoE knockup, plus healing, plus a bit of poke. Nami, what makes her strong? Bubble for playmaking and peeling. Then she gives healing plus attack speed. And then the ultimate for AoE knockup, for peeling or playmaking. Jenna, what makes her strong? In the early game, she's extremely strong. A lame bully thanks to her poking damage. So second ability, poking damage plus roaming potential because she's getting more movement speed. Then she has the shield that's granting attack damage, and then she has the tornado to knock up people and peel or playmake. And then she has the ultimate to peel because she's pushing everyone away and she's healing everyone. Now let's move on to Ash. What makes her strong? Her ultimate. That's about it. Her ultimate to catch people. That's pretty much it. You play Ash support for ultimate and her utility. Now listen, guys. Okay. Now listen. I have these 3 champions. I put these 3 champions in A tier, and some people might flame me for this. But now listen, guys. Listen, because I know you support players are selfish bitches. If you guys want to play Soraka, Senna and Sona, please pick them in combination with a frontline. If you pick these champions in combination with a frontline, trust me, they can be S tier. If you pick Soraka, Senna, Sona, you have Wukong, Bruiser in the jungle, and you have like a Garen in the Baron lane, S tier. Good. Approved. But if you pick these champions, you have Lee Sin jungle, and you have Jace top lane, and you have Zed mid lane, and you have no front line, then you're inting yourself, and you're wondering why you're half stuck in Master or in Diamond. That's the problem. Know when to pick these champions, okay? Soraka, silence heal, AoE heal, very good in team fights, very good in combination with frontline. Like these 3 champions, S tier in the right team composition. But most of the times, I know you inters are not gonna pick them into the right team composition. Okay. Senna. She's pretty much a second damage dealer with utility. She has heal, she has root, she has a shield, she has really good range plus damage. But pick her into the right team composition and then approved. Now Sona. I think she's pretty weak in the early game, but her utility value is really good, and her healing is insane in the mid-late game. But remember, if you play these enchanters, you need front line because they don't have good self-peel. In comparison to Nami and Jenna, they are different. They have a really good self-peel. They have their own self-peel. Like they can self-peel against engagers. But the Soraka can't self-peel. Like Nami has bubble plus ultimate, Jenna has ultimate plus tornado. They can self-peel even without tanks. Do you understand that? But they also work better with a frontline, by the way. But they don't necessarily need a frontline. But these 3 champions, they work way better if you have frontline. And I don't say they do not work if you don't have them, but they work way better. But yeah, Sona, really good ultimate, really good healing as well, but pretty weak in the early game. Plus, pick her into the right team comp. Braum is good counter against poke damage thanks to his shield. A lot of single target, like his first ability is single target stun. You can play pretty aggressive with the Lucian, for example. Can be good with the Lucian, but I think his value is not as good as some other supports. Because he has a single target stun, and the other thing is his ultimate, which is like a knockup. Can be good as engaging and peeling, by the way. Same for Leona with a single target stun. Because these other champions have like AoE playmaking in team fights. They're just better in comparison. But Braum and Leona are obviously still pretty good. Leona is really good at countering enchanters because she can just hard engage onto them pretty easily. But yeah, Leona is also tanky, has the single target stun, gets armor, has the ultimate to stun people, but hitting that ultimate is not as easily. Lux is, I mean, you can play out 2 playstyles. Playstyle number 1 is you're going full AP, and then you're just one-shotting people yourself. You have the self-peel with the bind, or you're just going for the enchanter build, where you're just providing a huge shield with Ardent. Yeah, with Ardent build and some AP, like a hybrid Ardent build or hybrid support build. You're doing a lot of damage and you're providing a lot of value with the bind and with the shielding. Now Swain. I think Swain is just pretty weak. I think if you want to play him, you need a secondary tank, because he's not a good main tank. Unless you're turbo snowballing, but otherwise you need like a main tank because he's not a good frontline. But he has decent utility, obviously. He has the root. He has some slow. That's about it, I guess. Blitzcrank can be a good playmaker, but he's very situational and a coin flip champion. Set can be also pretty good playmaking champion, thanks to his third ability and thanks to his ultimate. But I think he is very comp reliant and hard to play. You need to be Gigatet with a third ability flash combo catching people and an ultimate plays like that. Strong in the early game, but you need to snowball. I feel like you need to snowball and make plays happen in the early game. Morgana is pretty weak in the early game, but she is decent in the later stages thanks to her utility with the poke, with the black shield, with the ultimate. Seraphine, not a big fan of her. I think her early game is pretty weak, but her ultimate, a good ultimate can be very devastating in team fights. Brand into the right team comp can be a pretty good damage dealer. I think if you want to play Brand support, you need frontline because he provides nothing but damage. He's just a second damage dealer. But yeah, that's gonna be it for the tier list. I hope you guys enjoyed the tier list. I forgot something. I forgot the must ban list. That's a new part, by the way. So, my personal must bans are Yuumi. Yuumi and Lulu, I already explained it like a few minutes ago. They are broken. Like, if I had, out of all these champions, my two must bans are always Yuumi and Lulu. Yuumi and Lulu always. Because they just buff an ADC up and then they just become unkillable. Volibear also in the jungle, very obnoxious to deal with because people don't know how to deal with this champion right now. If you don't have crowd control, or if you guys don't have a lot of mobility, this champion becomes very hard and he's a strong diver and it becomes super tanky as well. Ornn's crowd control, super annoying as well. I think right now where people don't know how to play him, you need to ban them. Yeah. Zoe, insane poking damage, super annoying to deal with. Lee Sin and Kha'Zix are insane early game junglers that are just ganking left and right, and Lee Sin is, like I said, one of the best snowballing champions. Aatrox, insanely strong in the Baron lane, and also really good in the jungle. He just becomes a super tanky frontliner. Fiora, if you guys want to play Baron lane, you don't want to face Fiora. She's super hard to deal with, and she has the true damage as well. So if you guys play Baron lane, ban Fiora most of the times. And Pyke also, a good Pyke player can be a nightmare thanks to his mobility, playmaking potential, etc. But that's going for the tier list. I hope you guys enjoyed the tier list. Write down your feedback. Tell me what you think about the must bans for this meta or for this patch. And I'll see you guys next time. Make sure to leave a like and subscribe. Bye bye.
Fire spreading all around my room. My world's so bright, it's hard to breathe, but that's alright. Hush.